You know that feeling when someone asks, "So, what did you do this weekend?" And you freeze, because the truth that you stayed home, alone, and it was exactly what you wanted, sounds like a confession of failure. So you smile, you deflect, you make it sound like you had plans that fell through, when really, you cancelled the plans yourself. Because being alone isn't the problem. It's that no one believes you when you say you prefer it. There are people who've stopped trying to explain, who've learned that "I don't have friends" doesn't mean "I'm lonely." It means I've stopped pretending I need what everyone else needs. And here's what no one tells you. The absence of friends isn't always a loss. Sometimes it's a choice, a boundary, a way of protecting your energy from people who take more than they give. Because you've learned something most people spend their whole lives avoiding. That you can be happy with your own company. That your home isn't a place you retreat to when the world rejects you. It's the place you return to because it's where you feel most like yourself. But here's the question. No one asks, why does this feel so right to you when it feels so wrong to everyone else? Why can some people thrive in solitude while others suffocate in it? The psychology behind having no friends isn't just about preference or personality. It's about something deeper, a specific way your mind processes connection, energy, and meaning. And once you understand it, everything about your life starts to make sense in a way it never has before. Let me explain what's actually happening inside the mind of someone who has no friends and feels perfectly fine about it. Because this isn't about being antisocial. It's not about hating people. It's about something psychologists call high internal self-presence. A state where your inner world is so rich, so vivid, so complete, that external validation becomes optional rather than essential. Most people need others to feel real, to feel seen, to feel like they matter. But you've built an entire universe inside yourself. Your thoughts have depth. Your solitude has texture. Your silence has meaning. And here's what makes this so misunderstood. Society measures aliveness by how much noise you make in the world, how many friends you have, how many plans, how many texts. But your heart doesn't beat faster in crowds. It beats steadier in the quiet. Your mind doesn't light up when surrounded by people. It lights up when you're alone with your thoughts, your books, your music, your own company. That's not emptiness. That's a different kind of fullness. A fullness the world doesn't recognize because it can't see it. But here's the interesting part. This way of being doesn't usually start as a conscious choice. It starts as a series of small realizations, small disappointments, small moments where you notice that being around people cost you more than it gave you. It wasn't always this way. Maybe you tried. Maybe you showed up to gatherings and felt like a ghost. Maybe you texted first, again and again, until you realized you were the only one reaching out. Maybe you had friends once, but they drained you, took from you, expected you to perform a version of yourself that didn't feel true. And slowly, quietly, you started pulling back. Not because you were broken, but because you were protecting something precious. Your peace, your energy, your sense of self. I remember someone telling me once about the moment they realized they didn't need friends anymore. They were sitting at home on a Friday night, alone, and instead of feeling lonely, they felt relief. Relief that no one was asking anything of them. Relief that they didn't have to explain themselves. Relief that they could just be. And in that moment, they understood. Their solitude wasn't a symptom of failure. It was a form of freedom. A way of living that honored who they actually were, not who the world wanted them to be. And maybe that's you. Maybe you've had that moment too. The moment you stopped apologizing for staying home. The moment you stopped forcing yourself into social situations that left you feeling emptier than before. The moment you realized that being alone wasn't the problem, pretending you weren't was. Still, here's a curiosity. People who have no friends often share a specific psychological trait. They're deeply introspective. They think about things, not surface-level things. Deep things, meaning purpose, connection, existence. And when you think that deeply, small talk becomes unbearable. Surface-level friendships feel like a waste of time. You'd rather have one real conversation than 100 shallow ones. And when those real conversations don't come, you'd rather have silence. Some research suggests that people with rich inner lives often experience what's called low social reward sensitivity, meaning their brains don't release the same dopamine hit from social interaction that most people do. For most people, being around others feels good, necessary, energizing. But for you, it feels optional, sometimes even draining, not because you hate people, but because your brain is wired to find reward in other places, in solitude, in depth, in meaning, in the quiet hum of your own thoughts. And society doesn't know what to do with that. Society says you're missing out, that you should try harder, that you need to put yourself out there. But what if you're not missing out? What if you're just living differently? What if the life you've built in the silence of your own home is more real, more honest, more alive than the performance most people call friendship? History is full of people like you, philosophers, writers, artists, thinkers, people who changed the world not by having a lot of friends, but by spending a lot of time alone, thinking, creating, understanding. Their solitude wasn't a weakness, it was their strength. And maybe yours is too. Still, here's a curiosity. If being alone feels so right, why does it sometimes still hurt? Why do you sometimes lie awake at night wondering if something is wrong with you? Why do you sometimes feel that ache, that quiet loneliness, even when you know you prefer being alone? Because here's the truth. Having no friends isn't just about preference. It's also about protection. And if we're being honest, we have to ask, what are you protecting yourself from? Maybe you're protecting yourself from disappointment, because you've been let down before. You've trusted people who didn't show up. You've opened up to people who didn't understand. You've given your energy to people who didn't give it back. And after enough of that, your mind learned a lesson. It's safer to be alone than to be hurt again. Solitude became a shield. Not because you don't want connection, but because you've learned that most connections aren't worth the cost. Maybe you're protecting yourself from performance, because friendship, for most people, requires a version of you that isn't fully real. You have to be upbeat, available, responsive. You have to laugh at jokes that aren't funny, pretend to care about things you don't, show up even when you don't want to. And after years of that, you got tired. You realized, I'd rather be alone and real than surrounded and fake. Or maybe you're protecting yourself from nothing at all. Maybe you genuinely, deeply, truly prefer your own company. Maybe your inner world is so rich, so complete, so satisfying that external friendship feels redundant. Maybe you've discovered what most people never do, that you don't need others to feel whole, that you are enough, that your home, your silence, your solitude is not a consolation prize. It's the life you actually want. And here's a secret. People like you rarely say out loud. Sometimes, the reason you love being alone is because the world once made you feel invisible, and in your solitude, you finally became visible to yourself. If you are someone who has no friends and feels okay about it, I want you to know something. You are not broken. You are not cold. You are not missing some essential human part. You are simply wired differently, and that difference is not a flaw. It's a feature. Let me shift for a moment and speak directly to you. Not about you, to you. What if nothing is wrong? What if the way you are is exactly the way you're supposed to be? What if the world needs more people like you? People who don't need constant validation. People who can sit in silence and not feel empty. People who know the difference between loneliness and solitude. People who understand that depth matters more than breadth. That one real moment matters more than 100 shallow ones. I spent years thinking I was broken. I'd watch people around me laugh in groups, make plans, text constantly, and I'd wonder, why don't I want that? Why does the idea of a group chat make me want to disappear? Why do I feel more alive reading a book alone? than I do at a party surrounded by people. And then I realized I wasn't broken. I was just different. My mind didn't crave the same things other minds did. My heart didn't beat to the same rhythm. And once I stopped trying to force myself into a mold that didn't fit, I found something most people spend their whole lives searching for: peace, clarity, freedom, the ability to live on my own terms, in my own time, in my own way. Loneliness, I learned, is not the absence of people. It's the absence of understanding. And solitude is not isolation. It's a state of mind, a choice, a way of being that honors who you are instead of apologizing for it. And now it's time to talk directly to you. Maybe you are one of these people. Maybe you've spent years wondering if something is wrong with you. Maybe you felt guilty for staying home, for not texting back, for not wanting what everyone else seems to want. Maybe you've been told you're too quiet, too distant, too much in your own head. But here's what I want you to understand. Your preference for solitude is not a deficiency, it's a difference. And that difference comes with gifts most people will never have. You have depth, you have clarity, you have the ability to sit with yourself and not run, to think deeply, to feel fully, to live intentionally. Those are not small things. Those are rare things, precious things. It doesn't mean you never get lonely. Of course you do. Loneliness and solitude are not the same thing, but they can coexist. You can love being alone and still feel the ache of disconnection. You can be happy with your own company and still wish, sometimes, that someone understood you. That's not a contradiction. That's being human. But here's the difference. Loneliness is the feeling that something is missing. Solitude is the feeling that everything you need is already here. And the more you learn to live in solitude, the less loneliness has power over you. Because you stop waiting for someone else to make you feel whole. You realize you already are. There is something important still waiting to be said. Something about the psychology of why some people genuinely thrive without friends. And it comes down to 4 things. First, energy management. People who thrive alone are often highly sensitive to energy. Not in a mystical way, in a neurological way. Their nervous systems process stimulation differently. Social interaction, even positive social interaction, costs them more energy than it gives. And over time, they learn, I only have so much energy. I need to protect it. Solitude isn't avoidance. It's self-preservation. Second, trust and vulnerability. Many people without friends have been hurt before, deeply, and their solitude is a form of emotional safety. It's not that they can't trust, it's that they've learned to be selective, to protect their inner world from people who don't deserve access to it. And until they meet someone who does, they'd rather be alone. Third, a complex inner life. People who are comfortable without friends often have incredibly rich internal worlds. They think, they create, they imagine, they process. Their minds are constantly active, constantly exploring, constantly making meaning. And that inner richness makes external validation less necessary. They don't need people to feel alive because they already feel alive inside themselves. Fourth, control over their environment. Friendship requires compromise, negotiation, availability. And for some people, that feels like too much. They've built a life that works for them, a rhythm, a routine, a sense of peace. And introducing other people into that life disrupts it. So they choose solitude, not because they're selfish, but because they've finally found a way to live that doesn't exhaust them. And here's the paradox. Sometimes, the reason they love being alone so much is because the world once disappointed them so deeply. Sometimes, solitude is a response to pain, a way of saying, I tried, I opened up, I trusted, and it hurt. So now I protect myself. I choose peace over risk, silence over noise, my own company over the possibility of being let down again. And that's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's emotional intelligence. That's knowing yourself well enough to honor what you actually need instead of what you're supposed to need. But let me add something here, something that often goes unsaid. There's a difference between choosing solitude and defaulting to it out of fear. And it's worth asking yourself, am I alone because I genuinely prefer it? Or because I'm afraid of what might happen if I let someone in? Because here's the thing. You can be wired for solitude and still benefit from one or two deep connections. You can love your own company and still need, occasionally, to be understood by another human being. The goal isn't to become an island. The goal is to stop forcing yourself to be a continent when you're naturally an island. To stop pretending you need a crowd when all you've ever wanted is one person who truly gets it. And maybe that person hasn't shown up yet. Maybe they never will. But that doesn't mean your life is less meaningful. It just means your life is quieter, slower, more internal, and in a world that glorifies noise, that can feel like failure. But it's not. It's just a different rhythm, a different way of being alive. Picture this. You're standing at your window. It's evening. The world outside is moving. People walking, talking, laughing, living their loud, busy, connected lives. And you're inside, alone, watching. And instead of feeling left out, you feel relief, gratitude, peace. Because you know something they don't. You know that rest is not laziness, that stillness is not stagnation, that silence has its own form of communication. Society glorifies busyness, connection, constant availability, as if being alone is a failure, as if solitude is something to fix. But the truth is this: some of the most profound lives are lived quietly. Some of the deepest thinkers spend most of their time alone. Some of the most creative, most insightful, most self-aware people in the world have very few friends. Not because they failed at connection, but because they succeeded at something else: self-companionship. And self-companionship is a skill most people never learn. Most people can't sit with themselves, can't be alone without distraction, can't handle the silence. But you can, and that's not a flaw, that's a strength. You are not strange for preferring your own company. You are not broken for not having friends. You are not cold for protecting your energy. You are not missing out for staying home. You are not less than for living differently. You are not broken. You are not defective. You are not behind. You are building a life that doesn't exhaust you, a life that honors your energy, a life that makes sense to you, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. And that is not failure, that is courage. One day, maybe, you will meet someone who gets it, someone who doesn't drain you, someone who understands that silence is not awkward, that solitude is not loneliness, that depth matters more than frequency. And when that happens, you won't have to explain yourself. You won't have to perform. You'll just be, and they'll just be, and it will feel easy, natural, right. But until then, you have yourself, and that is enough, more than enough. Because you've learned something most people spend their entire lives running from: that you can be happy with your own company, that your home is not a place you hide. It's a place you return to because it's where you feel most like yourself. That peace, clarity, and freedom are not found in how many people know you, but in how deeply you know yourself. And maybe that's the real gift of solitude. Not that it makes you immune to loneliness, but that it teaches you something loneliness never could. That you are not incomplete, that you are not waiting to be found, that you are already whole, already here, already enough. The world will keep moving. People will keep asking what you did this weekend, and you'll keep smiling, keep deflecting. Or maybe one day you'll tell the truth. You'll say, I stayed home, alone, and it was exactly what I needed. And if they don't understand, that's okay, because you do, and that's all that matters. If this resonates with you, If you want to go even deeper into understanding the psychology of solitude, of living intentionally in a world that doesn't understand you, there's more waiting for you here. Another conversation, another layer, just for you. This is Alone Together, a quiet corner of the internet for people who choose solitude over half-hearted connections. If you're here, you're not broken. You're just built differently. And you're not alone in being alone.